Hello. I want to take a couple minutes and talk a little bit about the five political viewpoints that are listed in our conversation for this week. Um, and for to kind of help you to understand the differences between the two and which ones are more relevant for our conversation here today. Um, Marxist-Leninism uh, is a viewpoint that believes that the government should control essentially everything: education, um, religion, the economy, what people do for a living, how much they get paid, in an attempt to create a completely equal society. Um, Socialism, which is the economic element within Marxist Leninism, by itself is purely an economic idea. That is, the government should essentially own the means of production and employ people. For example, the government should take over railroads. Some people would advocate at times in our history that the government should take over the airlines in the wake of terrorist attacks and things like that. So the socialist idea or viewpoint is that the government should own the means of production. And we've had introductions of socialism to one degree or another in our country throughout our history, but never full blown socialism. The third political viewpoint is liberalism. Liberals believe that government should take strong, decisive action to solve or to help solve our economic and social problems. So, a great example of a liberal idea would be welfare, where we have an income tax that takes wealthy people's money at a much higher percentage rate and then takes that money and redistributes it through the government to people in need. And any of those programs that do that essentially have a liberal basis. Liberals would be very much in favor of the promotion of equality and also would be advocates of social and individual freedom as well. But not so much in the sense of property rights. Conservatives, on the other hand, um, would argue that the government shouldn't really be in the business of solving our economic and social problems, um, and that essentially we live in an unequal society, and the government should basically protect individual property rights. The government's power should be extremely limited, and that we should always realize that essentially we live in a world where we have over people, and more important than people, is a kind of transcendent morality that guides us and guides societies. Um, Conservatives would be very interested in experience and cautious to change and have a firm belief in order and the protection of property, and not so much an obsession with freedom, although they would want to have as much freedom as can be possible in an ordered society. A libertarian goes even further in this spectrum, and if you notice, the spectrum is going from more government involvement to less government involvement in people's daily lives generally. A libertarian would argue that the government should only act in defense of the country, and that there should be essentially no regulation of our economy, and there should be no regulation of social or individual behavior. That essentially, as long as your behavior doesn't harm someone else, the government has no right to have some kind of a say in that. And so these five political viewpoints tend from one extreme to another, where the government is controlling everything in the case of a Marxist Leninist, to where the government is controlling almost nothing except defending the country and protecting us from harming each other, essentially. In the political spectrum today, obviously, in the current presidential campaign, we have people who say they're conservative. We have people who are liberal but probably don't say that they are liberal. And we have people that say that they are libertarians. We don't have anybody that would say that they're a socialist or a Marxist Leninist in this spectrum, although elements of all of these viewpoints are probably present in one way or another in this conversation. So I would suggest to you that you consider the 5 viewpoints along the spectrum and consider where you lean. What pieces of these different viewpoints do you hold to, and for what reasons?